Hi everyone, Ted Simpson here, ready to show you another great painting. Let's see what we got here. We've got our 12 by 16 canvas set up in landscape mode. I just got done painting a whole bunch of canvases black, and that was so boring I have to do a painting to even it out. So, let's see here. I'm taking my liquid white, that's probably too much. And you can see here I'm using the light gray Bob Ross canvas today. And just simple little crisscross strokes. I really like just kind of scrubbing straight in like this. It picks them up, it spreads it around, it works it into all the nooks and crannies. Yes, missed all this edge right here. And then, yes, you blend it out. Simple little X's or whatnots. Ooh, that's a nice canvas. Super tight, like a drum. And allows you to see where you got the liquid white. And it also can tell you, just by the brightness of the white, if you got too much on there. You know, we're looking for just that film of color. So, if you need just to take a little bit off, you don't want to wipe the canvas with the paper towel, because sometimes that can get a little rough and you start to see the gray canvas again. Well, if you just want to take off a little, get a dry brush, give it a good once over, and then wipe it out again. It's a great way to control how much liquid white you have. Okay, now I'm scrubbing out most of the paint, but I like to leave just a little in there. It doesn't have to be completely clean. As Bob says, we don't want to spend all our time cleaning brushes. So what do I got here? I got a palette full of colors. Titanium white, alizarin crimson, phthalo blue, mountain mixture, dark sienna for some reason, sap green, cadmium yellow, bright red. I had a bunch of paint tubes here that are nearly empty, so that's why I'm focusing on certain colors here, because they're almost gone. Okay, so right off the bat, let's go into, this time I didn't pull my paints down here, but I just work a little bit of this alizarin crimson in back and forth, and something like that. Look at that. Maybe some down there in the water, I don't know. So, if it's a little too light, I'm just going to juice up a little area there to hit it a little more paint, and then just scrubbing my brush here, getting most of that crimson off of it. I just come right back and soften it. Look at how it mixes with the liquid white. It just gets lighter and lighter, blendier and blendier. That's the word of the day, blendier. And if you got any left in your brush, see, I don't have enough left in my brush. I want to get a little bit out there in the water. I don't know if we'll see it or not, but if we're going to see it, let's see it. All right. Makes sense, right? Now, very small amount. Look how I just barely tease some of that down, and then tap it multiple times, move that brush a little bit back and forth. Get that nice even distribution of color. You don't just want it on the corner. It's going to be a little harder to control that way. And let's just get some blue up here. It's okay if you overlap the pink a little bit. I'm not really trying to, though. If it happens to happen, it's okay. But let's try to keep the blue up in the unpainted part here, the non-pink part. Maybe a little right there. And I have so little in my brush, I can immediately just start blending it as well. Kind of hitting over that pink a little bit. Some of it blurs and blends, and maybe create some lavenders here and there. Look at that. Don't even have to think about it. It just happens. It just works. And at any point here, you want to change it. Maybe it's a little bit more intense blue in spots. I like having the light areas of the blue and the darker, deeper, richer blues. Kind of gives the distant cloud forms back there. Now, just a little bit more on my brush. Really working it in there. Maybe we'll have a little water here. I don't know. Getting some color out there just in case. I know we're going to have a little water. But where is it going to be? I don't really know right now. So if you cover the whole thing, you get to pick and choose where the water ends up. Alright, I'm going to clean that brush now. I've got my bucket and my odorless paint thinner, and I filled it up pretty full today. Swish it, shake it, beater bucket it. And if you've painted with me before, you know I use this big old trash can with a lid on it, paper towel or a towel covering the opening. So I reach down in between the towel and beat the devil out of it. And then we'll take our paper towel too. I want to make sure that keep these brushes nice and clean, so I kind of wrap it around like that, give it a squeeze, and it just helps shape the brush back to a flatter look. Sometimes beating the devil out of it will eventually, over time, blow the bristles out, so to speak. So if you just train the bristles here after you're done cleaning it, you'll be able to use these for a long time. Okay, what do we do now? We're going to take, let's see what color we can make here. I have an urge here to take some alizarin crimson and some dark sienna. Just want to see what color we make. Kind of a reddish, even deeper reddish brown, huh? I used a lot of crimson there. There's not a lot of dark sienna. Okay, now I'm going to add a little mountain mix. Mountain mix is already a combination of a bunch of dark colors. So I'm just playing around here. Boy, I better write this down in case this becomes a class. I won't know what colors I used. Dark sienna and alizarin crimson. And then mountain mix. And look how, let's see what color I make. A little bit of white, a little bit of my color. Ooh, kind of that reddish plum. Interesting. Interesting. Well, it's an interesting day, so we might as well try one. Alright, today's mountain here has a bit of a flatness to it. So I'm going to put that in first. And let's just sort of press in and get a nice outside edge there. Just let it sort of zing out there. Sometimes when we're doing this, I forget about where my sky is and where all the pink is. I might want to see a specific part of, and that's okay. Sometimes it just kind of goes away on its own there. And maybe there's another little piece right there. Ooh, not enough paint in my brush. There it is. Kind of get that clean, dark outside edge. And this one kind of just meanders off that way. Okay, so maybe just the 1-inch brush here. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to pull it away from the edge here. Just all that thick paint. Just want to move it away. Build out the basic shape here. There's a couple of different ways you can do this. You can just fill it all in at once here. You're just going, nee, 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 nee. I'm trying to, since I have such a big mountain to make and so little color, you gotta have to tease it down a little before I can blend it all the way. You see that, just pulling a little bit, come back up, pull a little bit more. There it is. We got all sorts of weird things happening here. I don't know if I'm going to keep it like this, but it's kind of fun to play around. Just pulling some of that down, removing excess color, creating some mist at the same time here. You start to see different things start to happen. Little highlights and shadows are already starting to form here. But the more I keep going down and up, I'm picking up liquid white, and things will just keep getting lighter and lighter the more I work it. So if you want a little bit of more dark in your mountain here, you want it nice and visible, don't blend too much. We do want some mist and fog here at the base. We can put that in. Look at that, just clean out my brush and hit the bottom edge here, let that liquid white kind of do its thing. Look at that, we could almost leave the mountain like that if we wanted to. Alright. Pull out some titanium white. Titanium white. Wipe the knife. Cut off our roll of paint. There we go. And let's come up here and just let this knife just kind of fall away. Can't stress enough how light to hold that blade. Just want it to fall off the knife. So funny, I start out thinking I'm going to do one thing and it immediately changes. All of a sudden I'm doing something else. Maybe over here just a little bit of this is hitting the highlight side. Alright, let's take some of my white and add some blue to it. Scraping and spreading, scraping and spreading. Get an interesting thing. Maybe a little bit of that dark color in there to dull it down. There we go. Cut off a roll of that. And maybe we'll have a little something going there. You know, in those hard to reach areas, there's nothing wrong with coming over and, oh, if you have one, use the small knife, but I don't have mine handy. So I'll just use the small edge of my knife here. Mixing up a slightly darker mixture of that shadow color. I want this part here deeper shadow. There we go. And then maybe a little bit of this regular shadow overlaps it a little. Just have to find angles here that give you the effect that you're looking for. There we go. A little bit up in here. Any of these little spots that need that opposite angle, we just drop those in. Something's going on up there. I think it should be highlight. Just had a little lump up there at the top. There it is. Is there a little shadow in there? I think we could sneak a little one in there. Is there one up here? Can you reach it? A little dot here, a little dot there. Yeah, I got it. Any of these little gaps could use something a little extra there. And then I go back to the highlight color. We can change some things here. Maybe put this little outcropping here. Give it a little bit more of a 3D effect. You put that little outcropping there. You get some of your shadow color. Give it a little shadow. Break up this line a little bit. Sometimes when you put these in there, they just look like, it's just straight columns. But if you want to change it up a little bit, give it a little more character. Look at this whole ridge starting to form here. I like that idea. Look at that. Maybe there's a little outcropping right there, where I can come back with a little shadow and just zing it, zing it, zing it. And sometimes if you come in here with just this needle-like amount of white, watch this, if you put a little right up there at the top, and let it kind of fall over the shadow a little. Adds a little extra interest there. Layering on some different shades. Same thing right here. I think it needs a little more. Sometimes when you try to be subtle with it, it turned out a little too subtle. There we go. I like the idea of having a little extra something right there. Just looks like it's on in front of that. Play around, have fun with it. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Change it. There we go. Alright, well, I'm going to come back here with a mostly cleaned 1-inch brush here. Just get most of the color out of it. Tap, 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 tap. Getting some mist and fog just tapped in there with the dry brush. And some people get obsessed with this part. I get it. You want to make it just perfect. But if you keep in mind, we're covering a lot of this mist up. Causes you to relax once you understand where it's going to go, what's coming up next. Gives you that freedom just to let it happen and move on. Look at that mist. Maybe even a little bit up right here. Following that basic angle. There we go. All right, let's play around here. We're going to have some foothills here, so let's take a little bit of that green and dark sienna. This is just some undercolor here. A little bit darker green. I got a little bit of that shadow color, or that dark mountain color in there too. Just something dull and green. Super simple, right? Now I just start tapping. Move that brush. All I really care about is making an interesting outer bump here. Just this cool little thing. Cover up what you need to cover up, and then I start bringing it down just by tapping whatever's there. You create some foothills here. All it is the dark parts here. If we decide to highlight it, this is just the dark parts, so we can kind of just tap and let some things happen. Look at these little light areas and dark areas in here. It's just little sections of mist. If I come back and I take a little bit more color, you can change it, make it a little darker if you want it. Something like that. And then I'm going to take some of it, whatever I made, some of it turns into reflection. So look at that, I cut it almost in half, didn't I? You get to figure out where there we go. Take just a little bit of the liquid white on the edge of the knife. Cut in a little water line. Oh, did I say I was going to highlight? I might have said I was going to highlight it. Then again, I might have said if I highlight it. I don't know. If this were a live stream, I'd ask the audience, what should I do? Should I highlight it now or later? Let's see about highlighting a little bit of it. It's too far away to see too much detail, so let's take some of this yellow, a little bit of the bright red, and some of whatever's in my brush will kind of dull it, those greens and browns. Let's get some color up here and just tap a little highlight here and there. Will we see it? Oh, well, I'm going to making sure we can see it if we want. But if you tap, find the angle, find the pressure, and you can tap in a little bit of highlight here and there. Some of that tapping will dull and soften these little spots you put in here, so it's up to you how much you want to tap and highlight. If you keep tapping it, it all just kind of melts together and turns a dead color. Some of these have no detail, some of them have some detail, you know. It's up to you. How much paint, what shade it is. If I come back with a little bit of bright yellow, look at that, I add a little highlight to the highlight. No big deal. Same thing with a little bit of red. Like how it just adds something extra there, a little section of grass that's turned, or that's very full of flowers, whichever you think. And very lightly soften it into the reflections if you accidentally go over it like I did. Okay, what's next? Oh, we get to jump right into the foreground. So we put those little water lines in, maybe a couple of little ripples here and there. If the ripples are too strong, just keep going over them and they'll disappear. They'll dull and disappear. Alright, let's mix up a big old batch of color. Before I do that, I want to get rid of anything that I had mixed some white in. So let's get rid of that shadow color. And let's see, what's next? We'll take all of this dark color I made up here and put it with our mountain mix. Some of this stuff has white in it, the dark sienna and green mixture. I'm going to get rid of some of that white just so I don't accidentally pick it up. Some of the crimson as well. Now that I've mixed all those colors together, I come back with my fan brush, loading lots of paint into the brush. Lots. Look at that. If I was to hold it up like this, you should see like a wedge of paint there. And let's go ahead and go big right off the bat, right over everything. Sky, the mountain, the foothills, the water. And we'll build this tree down. Ooh, got a little errant hair there. Okay, tapping with the corner of the brush. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, 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 tap. Start to get into a fun little rhythm here. Creating this basic tree shape here. As long as it's below the water, it'll look like it's in front, right? That's the goal here. And maybe, I can already tell you, I'll cheat a little bit. I want my land to be out kind of like this. Okay? Now, of course, you can sit there and just fill all this in now. We'll just fill some of that in a little later. I want to make sure I have enough paint for my trees first. So, let's give this tree a little buddy. And this is a great painting here to practice those trees. Anytime you get to do more than 5 or 6 evergreens at a time, that's a good painting. It gives you lots of practice. Okay, we've got some small ones here. Now, are they small or are they just far away? Who's to say? It's for yous to say, I guess. Ooh, that one just became taller. But maybe it's the biggest tree in the world. It's just a long ways away. Tapping in a few. Let's tap in a couple more. Ooh, look at that baby one. Do, 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 do. Different size. Creates variation here. Just looking for shapes. These again are just the dark parts of the tree. Maybe we got another one coming up here. Just tap, 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 tap. Working from the center and out as we go down. Oh. I did it. I did it. I accidentally made Mega Tree. Great thing about these is you can leave some of that bare at the top so we can make some serious trunk show. And it's a good way to not make them too wide too quick. It's just to skip your way down, let there be some trunk there. Now this tree I think is just going to be in front of all, you know? All of a sudden we made background trees. And maybe we've answered our question here. If I come in here and just do a lot of little trees, just focusing on that little bit right there, we've just determined here that this is a hill. These are super tall trees. They're just really, really far away. Look at all these little shapes we can put in. They're not dark enough. Like those are not dark enough. Just add a little more paint to your brush. Alright. Now, all this here, I'm just going to fill in with whatever paint is still on my brush. I can just tap it or wipe it I like wiping it to keep the canvas a little bit flat. Makes it a little easier to get those highlights off when you're doing the grass. But it's up to you. As long as it's pretty dark, it's going to work. It's tough to get into those little nooks and crannies sometimes. There we go. Now look at this. We can kind of create the lay of the land already here. Well, there we go. Look at that. Clean out this brush. And I'll take my knife, clean up that little bit of liquid white right there. Let me take my knife, a little bit of white, a little bit of dark sienna. Let's make kind of a marbly mix here. Look at that. Real small roll of paint. And first we'll make our little stalk at the top. And then just a couple of touches for an indication of a trunk. Tell you what, sometimes I'll just make my little spikes first. And maybe some off in the background, here and there. Okay, now I can come in here and add a little trunk. And if you really want to get fancy, a little touch of white, pure white. Oh, look at that. You can add tiny extra highlight to those if you want to. Okay. Now, let's take our liquid white on our fan brush and start teasing down some of this yellow. Create this little working pile here. More paint, smooth, smooth, load it, work it, smooth it. Take a little bit of the sap green. I love taking just a speck of the blue. That changes the green a little bit, more to my liking. Want lots of paint up in that brush. Sometimes I do a little snow plow here and then smooth it. Get that paint right up on the tips of the bristles. All right. I'm not sure we'll be seeing all sorts of highlights on these trees here in the front, or in the back I should say. And putting it on here, just noticed here the color is a little too bright for my taste. I even took a little bit of this dull under there. Look at that. Look how that dulls it down. Makes it look a little less pure spring, you know. So let's put some highlights on these trees first. Here and there. You do the ones that are in the back first. And if you think they're being overlapped, you don't have to do that side. Just leave that overlapping side. And then when you come by with the tree that's in front, there's no other paint in your way here. Makes it easier to overlap and create that sense of depth and space between the trees. All right. Start working my way down, leaving those dark areas. Not just covering the whole tree. I'm kind of thinking about form and shape here, these different layers of highlights. As you work your way down, you see like these trees have little sections here. I always think of these kind of like plates, all these different flat layers here of highlights. And let's just call that's probably pretty good. You can always come back and add a couple here and there, but try not to overdo it. Okay. Okay, I gotta stop. I am so bummed. I'm going to come back here and tap into some of this dark color. Have a little bush, have a little tree. Which is it? Well, it's up to you to decide, I suppose. And look at that, it's just going to go right in front of this tree on that side. Maybe we got a little bush over here as well. Something like that. All right, well, that was simple enough. I'm going to clean that 1-inch brush so I can do a nice, big, lacy, detailed highlight here. It's been too long here. Lots and lots of paint. Dull it down with some greens. Touch of that blue. But you see, it looks like I got a lot of paint, but I need even more. Okay, I'm not diving into the whole thing. I'm just grazing off the top here because I want to see that nice lacy texture on my palette. So I got all that paint on my brush. That way I can just very lightly touch. And it creates thousands and thousands of leaves. Very, very simple. Building our way down, calling it good. There we go. Now, while I'm here, I'm going to change it up a little bit, mainly because I don't have a lot of yellow paint left. So I'm just going to lighten the color with a little bit of liquid white and titanium white. Just make it a lighter looking bush. There we go. And that way I can do this one. Let's put a little one right there. And then a bigger one kind of comes down in front of it. Haha! And there we go. Kind of surprised myself with that laugh. Haha! Look at me! Says that laugh. I'm very, very happy with that. Now we got to make some grass here. What kind of grass do we want? A little bit more of the yellow I put out there just for this. Just for this. Some of that green, some of the blue. A little more of the blue. Definitely makes a different flavor, doesn't it? I can feel how thick this paint is, so I'm going to take just a single drop of the paint thinner. I'm telling you, when I mean a drop, just that, you gotta be gentle with that thinner. Like 1 drop of thinner is like 5 drops of liquid white. Something like that, maybe 10, maybe 30. It's a lot. So let's go ahead here and define our grass. Just tap. Ooh, look at that. I cut those right off, didn't I? Okay. Reload my brush, come back a little bit. Let's go right up underneath the bush. All this paint there just for a pretty small section of grass. just let it keep working itself into the background color. And it gets duller and duller and duller as we move away. Okay, well, if I were to take a little bit of my dark sienna here, maybe there's a little path kind of meandering through. Off into the distance it goes. Now a little bit of white. Got a little bit of that highlight color left here. Let's put a little highlight on it. Just here and there. Not too much. There we go. Now I'm going to come back here and reload my brush for the grass, and let's create another section right over here. And just by changing angles and size and shape of these, you get all sorts of different effects. Hills and bright spots, low spots that you can change. You know, we don't have to leave it in any one way here. Anytime you can go back, especially if you didn't really overdo it here, watch this. Just come back with a little more paint and change it. Now, of course, it will get to a point where you've got so much paint on the canvas that you can't just keep changing it. That's when you got to take other steps here and just, you might have to do a scrape or something. But there we go. We got some nice little indications of grass. And maybe, what do I have to do here? We got to do something. Is this the end? 43 minutes in? Well, I think we could do something super quick. Let me get a little bit of the Van Dyke brown. Let's see if I can't put a tree in here real quick with the knife. That makes it even faster. Get a roll of paint on the knife, and let's put a tree, let's say right here. Just goes up and up. As long as it's a little bit wider at the bottom. You can do the left side, you can do the right side. The important thing is just lay the color on and leave it be. As quickly as you can do it. That's where it's going to turn out best. Alright. Maybe, I'm trying to think if he has a twin or not. Oh, this old tree is a little bit leany, isn't it? You see, when you try to do too much fiddling, it'll get away from you. So a little bit of the white and dark sienna. We're going to treat this one similar to a birch and just drop a little bit of highlight by pulling the knife across. And then I like to take a little bit of pure white and maybe in a spot or two an extra little highlight. That wasn't just a spot or two, but that was fun. All right. Liner brush time. Let's take our liner brush and a little bit of that brown. Really melt that brown down into a very thin, workable little pile of color here. And let's extend this little guy right on up and out. Oh, some little old trees here. You got some branches, you got some little extra branches, all these little guys. And then let's take a little bit of our dark color and give a little bit of foliage on these little guys. There you go. Get some dark on there. Come back with a little bit of bright color. I know, that took them more than a couple of minutes. But that was fun to put in there. And we can't forget about just a little bit of that paint on my 1-inch brush. And let's give that, there it is, fix the foot. I think we got ourselves a completed painting. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this. If you watched all the way to the end, the secret word is happy trees. Oh, let's go crazy. I'm going to sign on the right this time. I hope you tell me what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe, notification bells, and all those wacky things. Help me earn another 4 cents or something on this video. I appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time. Take care. See you in the next video.